beats boom, 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 boom. High speed goes boom, 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 boom. My feet go.
April 16th, 2018. This is Tokyo. This is Rakuten. These are Cisco executives invited to a meeting with Rakuten. This is Tarek Amin, CTO of Rakuten Mobile. This is Prakash Suthar, team leader from Cisco Customer Experience.
Namaskar. Good morning.
This is a story about doing something that's never been done before.
Prakash, I need someone to help me build the world's first end-to-end cloud-native network. We need a partner.
Let's do it.
In order for this to work, it has to be optimized for 5G.
We'll design it from scratch.
Fully automated.
Fully virtualized.
Cloud.
Core.
Transport.
Virtual RAN.
Everything. It will be the first of its kind.
Oh, yeah.
You can figure it out?
We can figure it out.
This is their idea. It's an ambitious idea. An unprecedented idea.
It's true.
But this is what industry executives called it.
Impossible.
But that didn't stop them. That just made them hungry.
So Prakash, how about developers?
We'll create a platform.
Different systems.
Different partners
Working
working
together.
together. What else?
This is the plane that took the Rakuten team to San Jose.
Okay, so it takes 3 weeks to implement a traditional radio site.
With automation, we can do it in 10 minutes. And more secure,
Zero touch.
zero defect.
Ready for 5G.
Just upgrade the software.
This is Tarek's impressed face. This went on for months.
We're gonna need new hardware,
Then we'll partner with your vendor.
but our design?
You got it.
Then Tarek said,
And we want you to manage the whole chain, oversee the integration of vendors and partners.
February 3rd, 2019. This is Rakuten and Cisco and their impossible idea making their first call.
これ綺麗だね。Oh my god.
And the world just changed. Rakuten and Cisco Customer Experience. The right solutions, the right technology, most importantly, the right people. Between ideas and invention, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible. Every once in a while, an opportunity comes along. A really big opportunity. As in $6 trillion big. Because that's how much business is shifting to the cloud-native countries and the companies that are capitalizing on Wi-Fi everywhere with security. Like the Netherlands, where smart ports and connected highways are helping alleviate one of the most dense transportation networks in the world. In Italy, where Dallara helps automakers around the world make high-performance cars faster and safer. Cisco is digitally transforming their business, the way they work, think, and interact. At Rakuten in Japan, who partnered with Cisco to build the first cloud-based and fully virtualized mobile network. A model for the future of telecommunications around the world.
Oh my god.
The hyperfast connections and the wildly transfigured networks they will spawn is going to change everything. And only Cisco has the knowledge, the experience, and the solutions to make it happen. Between the internet that's here and the internet that's coming, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
My name's Ami Tank. I've been at Cisco for 20 years. Grace Girls Home is a girls' orphanage in Sri Lanka. We have over 40 girls right now. They come from really difficult backgrounds, tremendous circumstances, yet they have resilience, they've got passion, and they want to grow up to help others. We provide them with housing, care, food, nutrition, doctors, mental health care, dental visits, and all of that. I am the chief of staff, and I manage the board. There's so many ways that technology can be used to end poverty, to help these girls. One is through online education, but we need a way to track it, to manage it, to work with the girls, and to continually kind of improve on it. When you allow a girl to stand on her own 2 feet, either through education, opportunity, exposure, whatever, you can raise a community. My mom, who has just recently passed away, she lived and grew up in pure poverty. She always persevered. Before she passed away, she said, "You've got to continue to give in life because that's the purpose of life." That to me is really what inspires me. One girl said to me, "Promise me when you leave here, you'll be my voice." And I told her, I said, "When I leave here, I'm going to tell everybody about you."
Between Sri Lanka's lost girls and a future full of opportunity, there's Ami Tank.
My name is Roy Vessel. I've been at Cisco for 12 years. Outside of Cisco, I work in teaching cybersecurity and cyber defense to youth through a program called Cyber Patriot and through the United States Air Force Civil Air Patrol. I took the team over and fell in love with it. We started at the age of 12, work all the way through high school. I want them to know how to take care of themselves and protect their information, protect themselves, protect their families. I've got kids that have graduated through my program that are now working for the government. I've got folks that are working in corporations looking for cyber threats and how do we prevent them. Cisco's been heavily involved. If you have something that you have on your heart or a passion that you want to reach out and do, talk to your manager. The satisfaction of seeing these kids grow, seeing those light bulbs go off, that's my payment.
Between curious kids and the future of cybersecurity, there's Roy Vestal.
My name is Lucy, is my English name. The Chinese name is Xiu Fan. I come from Beijing, China. I have been working in Cisco for 19 years. I'm a sales manager in customer experience team. I think Cisco is really a great company. Cisco support us giving back live days. We have some energy, we have the eager from the heart. So everybody, when they know what I'm doing, they just raise hand. Lucy, give me a chance, I want to join. I can make something happen. I work for the Gray and Shine Foundation since 6 years ago. They had a lot of programs, but the major program is support rural teacher and rural children for the reading program. The children really need resources to support them and to get the learning capability to support their future. We actually leverage Cisco some technology like WebEx. We provide some training to the teacher. They can, improve their skill and their reading knowledge, and they can know the word better. I think together we have a big power. Is not only one or two children can benefit from that. I'm proud of that.
Between rural school kids and a universe of learning, there's Lucy Guo.
Okay, give it a try.
Between wisdom and curiosity, there's a bridge. Between ideas and inspiration, trauma and treatment.
Gained a couple of more pounds since last time.
That's good for the babies.
Between the people and their leaders.
Affects the heart.
How's the hospital?
It's been very busy. It was busier today
Than yesterday.
When are you gonna come back?
Collaboration
And we have in the center.
and creativity.
You don't want that sketch to compete with the image.
Between the moments that make us who we are and keeping them safe, private,
That's great.
and secure, there's WebEx.
Beautiful.
I was really good in math and physics. So that was my favorite subject since high school. That's actually how I ended up in engineering. My name is Alphonsine Imaniraguha. I am a consulting engineer at Cisco in the US. But I was born in Rwanda. It was April 6th, 1994. That night, we heard a loud explosion in the sky. We rushed to listen to our radio, and we learned that President of Rwanda, that his plane was shot down. That was the beginning of the genocide. I was 13 years old. I remember just hiding in the bushes. not sleeping at home at night. My dad was like, hide here, I'm going to find another place where we can safely all hide. As soon as my dad left, we immediately overheard the group of militiamen say that they just killed him. I didn't feel the ground, I didn't feel the air around me. There was no wind, there was no sun. I was already dead. Eventually, I found my 3 younger siblings. They were in the orphanage. At that point, I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but my life has a meaning. Just watching how one person could make a big difference, I started my nonprofit, Rising Above the Storms. We work with the homeless kids. We help them go back to school. I could have ended on the street. I could have been one of them, and just seeing them actually dreaming, it gives me hope. Doesn't matter how you do it, make it a goal to change one life. Seeing how Cisco has enabled me to do something I love so much, I can't imagine a better feeling in this life.
Between survival and inspiration, there's Alphonsine Imanaruguha.
The electricity is always there. We don't worry about it. We don't think about it. Never do we think about an attack on the power grid. It is like this all over the world. It is like this in Finland. Turku Energia supplies electricity for hundreds of thousands of people. Because its operations network was independent from IT, an attack could have found its way into the grid and no one would have known, until it was too late. By extending the IT network out to operations, Cisco was able to help secure the entire system, both now and in the future. And with Cisco IoT technology, the new virtually fail-proof system is as reliable as it is secure, one unified network. It's why tonight, in Turku, life will go on like it always has and always will.
Between on and always on, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
Every day, every night, everywhere. People are living on the streets. We see it. We all know it's a problem. But what can we do? In Brisbane, Australia, 2 young mates decided to do something. They would start small. They decided not to call them homeless. They would call them friends. Then, they outfitted a van with a washer, dryer and a shower and hit the streets of Brisbane to wash their friends' clothes. Orange Sky was born. One van quickly became 2, then 4, then 20. The operation, staff, logistics needed to scale and quickly. So Orange Sky found a partner. Cisco tailored a Meraki network that can grow as they grow. Intuitive dashboards at the head office and robust Wi-Fi in every vehicle let Orange Sky monitor vans and onboard devices remotely via the cloud. Cisco WebEx connects leaders in real time with staff and volunteers, whose energy and enthusiasm is essential to the model's success. What happened? Something wonderful. While friends waited for their clothes to wash and dry, they talked. A simple connection, joining a community. perhaps for the first time in years. If one load of laundry can do that, who knows what's possible? Between cleaning clothes and creating a community, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
Electricity is like the air we breathe. It's always there when we need it, which is always. Evergy serves nearly 2 million commercial, residential, and industrial customers across Kansas and Missouri. Farms, hospitals, businesses, and homes all rely on Evergy to keep the lights on, the food cold, their families warm, and their data safe. So Cisco CX partnered with Converge One, and together they worked with Evergy on a truly radical solution, completely redesigning and revitalizing their network infrastructure by combining Cisco DNA and Cisco ICE. And what typically takes 3 years was completed in just 18 months.
One thing that really stood out is the way Cisco stayed with us through the project. It wasn't just a design, implement, sell, and then move on, but it really was about working together with the teams.
Converge One and CX's expertise gave Evergy the stability and flexibility their business demands today, while setting them up for the future with an easier-to-manage infrastructure featuring improved reporting and monitoring, ensuring electricity and security is there when we need it, which is always. Between lighting the way and leading the way, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
I have a lot of ambitious dreams, like making the best tea in Japan and sharing it with the rest of the world.
This is Namiki Ishiyama. She grows tea with her family in Ibaraki Prefecture, Japan, on their farm established in 1871. Namiki sells her family's tea online at the marketplace created by Rakuten, a global leader in internet services. Namiki's ambitious dreams may come true sooner than she thinks, because the world is about to change. Rakuten has partnered with Cisco to do something that has never been done before, to build a new mobile network, cloud-based, fully virtualized, and optimized for the coming 5G revolution. This is Tarek Amin, CTO at Rakuten Mobile.
My belief is this platform is going to change everything.
This is 5G. More data, more power, new tools we can't yet imagine. Artificial intelligence in the palm of our hand.
Making connectivity affordable. I think Rakuten and Cisco is going to do that, and that's going to change the ecosystem of telecommunication in this country and across the world.
What will 5G mean to Namiki's tea business? Rakuten and its partner Cisco are excited to find out.
My husband and I are 6th generation tea farmers. My son will be the 7th generation. That is my dream.
Between tradition and transformation, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
Running makes me feel happy. My favorite part about cross country is like the mental part. I'm Max. When I was 11 years old, I was diagnosed with aplastic anemia. And if I didn't find a donor, I probably wouldn't be here right now.
I'm Dylan and I'm 22. 3 years ago, I joined the registry at Be The Match. It was simple, just swab your mouth and send it in.
Be The Match is a global database of donors. To save more lives, they needed to make more matches. So they consulted with technology integrator E+. The solution? Cloud-based management made possible by Cisco UCS. Now, Be The Match team members use Cisco WebEx and Contact Center to collaborate with patients, donors, and their critical courier network. And their data is secure, protected by Cisco Umbrella Security.
Knowing what Max had to go through, what I had to do was easy.
One person in the world was a match to me. It's pretty special.
The Cisco network allows Be The Match to make matches faster than ever. And that's just the start of what's possible.
I am excited to meet Max. I don't think he knows it yet, but he's always gonna have a #1 fan.
Me and Dylan are DNA twins. Dylan's like my brother.
Between a life-threatening disease and a life-altering donation, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible. When someone asks, where were you when golf history was made? You don't want to say, at home on my couch. You want to be there. You want that connection. Not just watching history, but part of it. Welcome to the 2019 U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. The first U.S. Open championship in history to bring fully secure course-wide Wi-Fi to fans, players, broadcasters, and event organizers. We're not just talking about players' scores and ball positions. This is intent-based networking, the power of Wi-Fi 6 and data analytics in concert. Delivering super-fast connectivity, real-time video, sharing, wayfinding, and top tracer technology. For any event, any size, anywhere, this is Cisco's legendary network expertise to go. Now everyone, on the course and at home, can be part of the moment. Where were you when history was made? Between the game and the game as you've never known it, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
My feet go boom, 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 boom. My heart beats boom, 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 boom. Heart speed goes boom, 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 boom. My feet go boom, boom, boom. Roll on, I'm going, 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 going. There's a big storm, it's coming, 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 coming on. Roll on, I'm going, 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 going. There's a big storm, it's coming, 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 coming on. Coming, 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 coming on. Coming, 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 coming on. Boom, boom, boom. My feet go boom, 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 boom. My heart beats boom, 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 boom. Heart speed goes boom, 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 boom. My feet go.
April 16th, 2018. This is Tokyo. This is Rakuten. These are Cisco executives invited to a meeting with Rakuten. This is Tarek Amin, CTO of Rakuten Mobile. This is Prakash Suthar, team leader from Cisco Customer Experience.
Namaskar. Good morning.
This is a story about doing something that's never been done before.
Prakash, I need someone to help me build the world's first end-to-end cloud-native network. We need a partner.
Let's do it.
In order for this to work, it has to be optimized for 5G.
We'll design it from scratch.
Fully automated.
Fully virtualized.
Cloud.
Core.
Transport.
Virtual RAN.
Everything. It will be the first of its kind.
Oh, yeah.
You can figure it out?
We can figure it out.
This is their idea. It's an ambitious idea, an unprecedented idea.
It's true.
But this is what industry executives called it.
Impossible.
But that didn't stop them, that just made them hungry.
So Prakash, how about developers?
We'll create a platform.
Different systems.
Different partners
Working together.
What else?
This is the plane that took the Rakuten team to San Jose.
Okay, so it takes 3 weeks to implement a traditional radio site.
With automation, we can do it in 10 minutes. And more secure.
Zero touch.
Zero defect.
Ready for 5G.
Just upgrade the software.
This is Tarek's impressed face. This went on for months.
We're gonna need new hardware.
Then we'll partner with your vendor.
But our design?
You got it.
Then Tarek said,
And we want you to manage the whole chain, oversee the integration of vendors and partners.
We're on it.
February 3rd, 2019. This is Rakuten and Cisco and their impossible idea making their first call.
はい、よし。あ、これ綺麗だね。Oh my god.
And the world just changed. Rakuten and Cisco Customer Experience. The right solutions, the right technology, most importantly, the right people. Between ideas and invention, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible. Every once in a while, an opportunity comes along. A really big opportunity. As in $6 trillion big. Because that's how much business is shifting to the cloud-native countries and the companies that are capitalizing on Wi-Fi everywhere with security. Like the Netherlands, where smart ports and connected highways are helping alleviate one of the most dense transportation networks in the world. In Italy, where Dallara helps automakers around the world make high-performance cars faster and safer. Cisco is digitally transforming their business, the way they work, think, and interact. At Rakuten in Japan, who partnered with Cisco to build the first cloud-based, fully virtualized mobile network. A model for the future of telecommunications around the world.
Oh my God.
The hyperfast connections and the wildly transfigured networks they will spawn is going to change everything. And only Cisco has the knowledge, the experience, and the solutions to make it happen. Between the internet that's here and the internet that's coming, there's a bridge. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
My name's Ami Tank. I've been at Cisco for 20 years. Grace Girls Home is a girls' orphanage in Sri Lanka. We have over 40 girls right now. They come from really difficult backgrounds, tremendous circumstances, yet they have resilience, they've got passion, and they want to grow up to help others. We provide them with housing, care, food, nutrition, doctors, mental health care, dental visits, and all of that. I am the chief of staff, and I manage the board. There's so many ways that technology can be used to end poverty, to help these girls. One is through online education, but we need a way to track it, to manage it, to work with the girls, and to continually kind of improve on it. When you allow a girl to stand on her own 2 feet, either through education, opportunity, exposure, whatever, you can raise a community. My mom, who has just recently passed away, she lived and grew up in pure poverty. She always persevered. Before she passed away, she said, "You've got to continue to give in life because that's the purpose of life." That to me is really what inspires me. One girl said to me, "Promise me when you leave here, you'll be my voice." And I told her, I said, "When I leave here, I'm going to tell everybody about you."
Between Sri Lanka's lost girls and a future full of opportunity, there's Ami Tank.
My name is Roy Vessel. I've been at Cisco for 12 years. Outside of Cisco, I work in teaching cybersecurity and cyber defense to youth through a program called Cyber Patriot and through the United States Air Force Civil Air Patrol. I took the team over and fell in love with it. We started at the age of 12, work all the way through high school. I want them to know how to take care of themselves and protect their information, protect themselves, protect their families. We've got kids that have graduated through my program that are now working for the government. I've got folks that are working in corporations looking for cyber threats and how do we prevent them. Cisco's been heavily involved. If you have something that you have on your heart or a passion that you want to reach out and do, talk to your manager. The satisfaction of seeing these kids grow, seeing those light bulbs go off, that's my payment.
Between curious kids and the future of cybersecurity, there's Roy Vestal.
My name is Lucy, is my English name. A Chinese name is Xiu Fan. I come from Beijing, China. I have been working in Cisco for 19 years. I'm a sales manager in customer experience team. I think Cisco is really a great company. Cisco support us giving back live days. We have some energy. We have the eager from the heart. So everybody, when they know what I'm doing, they just raise hand. Lucy, give me a chance. I want to join. I can make something happen. I work for the Gray and Shine Foundation since 6 years ago. They had a lot of program, but the major program is support rural teacher and rural children for the reading program. The children really need resources to support them and to get the learning capability to support their future. We actually leverage Cisco some technology like WebEx. We provide some training to the teacher. They can, improve their skill and their reading knowledge, and they can know the word better. I think together we have a big power. Is not only one or two children can benefit from that. I'm proud of that.
Between rural school kids and a universe of learning, there's Lucy Guo.
Okay, give it a try.
Between wisdom and curiosity, there's a bridge. Between ideas and inspiration, trauma and treatment.
Gained a couple of more pounds since last time.
That's good for the baby.
Between the people and their leaders.
Affects the heart.
How's the hospital?
It's been very busy. It was busier today
Than yesterday.
When are you gonna come back?
Collaboration
And we have in the center.
and creativity.
You don't want that sketch to compete with the image.
Between the moments that make us who we are and keeping them safe, private,
That's great.
and secure, there's WebEx.
Beautiful.
Hi, and welcome to the Cisco Secure Insights Summit. My name is Ben Munro, and I'm going to be your host for day one of a two-day event. And we have got a lot of content coming up, so we're going to get straight into that after a couple of quick notes. First of all, today it's all about zero trust in today's evolving workplace. I want to make sure you don't lose sight of the fact we have a second day coming up, and day two, we're going to transition and talk about security as a team. We know that complexity sometimes can be our biggest threat, and so day two has got some incredible speakers lined up, and I'll come on right at the end of today's session and let you know more about that. We're also going to talk about our security platform, about SecureX, because that's one of the things we're most excited about. Having started to really deliver platform capabilities at scale, provide visibility, provide insights, provide integration, and really help give teams time back. So that's all day two. Now let's focus back on day one, when we have an incredible lineup of speakers for you to really dive deep into two topics. The first of those is zero trust, a framework that I know all of you know about, and something that is incredibly important for the security industry to think about. And the second of those is really securing remote workers. And there's kind of obviously a subtext of everything we're doing at the minute. This incredible shift we've had from February and March onwards with enabling a huge amount of our workforce to leave the office, to get to their homes, and to work securely from that environment. And obviously we know that that's not going to revert back to how it was before. That's going to enable a transformation to a greater percentage of the workforce being remote, being outside of an office. So we want to make sure we think about that as well. In order to do that, we've assembled some thought leaders, we've assembled industry analysts, we've brought in some of our own subject matter experts to help tell that story. And we're going to start with Wendy Nather, the head of the advisory CISOs. Before we do that, a couple of quick housekeeping announcements and just some context on today. We're broadcasting right now live across 25 countries in the region, reaching a massive audience. And we want to make sure that you tell all your friends, your co-workers and your colleagues. So if you're watching it on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, or one of the platforms, please share. This is going to be live for the next hour or so, and your colleagues are not going to want to miss some of the speakers we have lined up, including Chase Cunningham, who literally wrote the wrote the book on Zero Trust. So let's make sure we stay tuned for Chase. If you're watching it on cisco.com on the web, right now below me, you should see the URL that you can use to share with your colleagues. Again, we're broadcasting across 25 countries, 4 different languages outside of English. This is being presented in. So there's translations into Japanese, into Korean, and into both simplified and traditional Chinese. So we're doing what we can to reach the broadest audience possible with this incredibly important information. If you've got questions as you watch the content, Andy Burke and his team of specialist panelists are on standby waiting for your questions, which you can put into the Q&A panel here. We'll do our best to answer everything live, and if we don't, we'll get back to you and make sure you get the information you're looking for. And if you're sharing this on social media, please use the hashtag Cisco Secure Summit. Right, let's get on with the day. I'm going to welcome now Wendy Nather, someone who is a thought leader, who you may know from some of her many conference talks and presentations where she espouses a message of simplicity, a message of inclusivity, and really talks about some of the ways that you can think beyond just the technology of security and think about this as a people challenge, as a people question. She's inspiring. She has worked not only as the head of advisory CISOs for Duo and now with the same role at Cisco, but she's also worked as a CISO herself in banks and in the finance sector in the US and in Europe. She's worked as an analyst, as a leader of analysts at 451, and she's also worked as a director of research at the retail ISACA. So plenty of industry experience and an all-round wonderful human being, someone who I'm proud to call a friend. And so without further ado, give a welcome wherever you're watching this to Wendy Nather. Over to you, Wendy.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much, Ben, for that introduction. I'm Wendy Nather, and I would like to say hi to everybody out there from my bunker here in Austin, Texas. I'm going to talk today, starting off this day of insights, about CISO priorities. Now, some of you are CISOs and you already know what your priorities are, but I thought you might be interested in some of the things that your peers have told us, because very recently we went and did a survey of CISOs from very different areas, big companies and small companies and different industries, to find out what projects they just finished, what they're working on now, and what they're planning to start working on. In other words, what's top of mind for them right now. And as you know, it's been a very turbulent time. So we were very interested in finding out what they are working on as a result of everything that's been going on. So let me tell you about a few of those. Here are the 3 main categories, and we're going to go through them one by one. These are the categories that just about everybody mentioned, without exception. The first category is cloud migration and security, because yes, people are still migrating to the cloud, and they're still very concerned about being able to secure the cloud and their resources and their data in it. And the important things to know about this is it's both public and private cloud. They are still building private clouds in some of their data centers, and they're also trying to secure access to things like infrastructure as a service, SaaS applications, third parties, and so on. They're also concerned about securing workloads, because it's not just securing applications, it's securing the workloads that their developers are using, because that's often an attack vector, as well as the workloads that they're using in production or that they're sharing with partners. They're trying to get greater visibility because, as everybody knows, once you move something to the cloud and it's not on your infrastructure anymore, you don't necessarily have the visibility that you're used to. So sometimes you have to negotiate that visibility. And service integration is something else that a lot of CISOs were mentioning, making that seamless, making that perform better. The next category is, of course, remote work, not a surprise to anybody. A lot of organizations were taken by surprise by the pandemic, and they had to scale remote access very rapidly in order to keep from disrupting business. Availability was a big, big issue. And a lot of organizations already had remote access, but it was only for administrative users or a few remote users. And suddenly they had to roll it out to everybody. And maybe their infrastructure wasn't scaled for the entire company. Maybe they didn't have enough licenses and so on. There was a lot of scrambling that happened. And then finally, everybody was concerned about secure collaboration. And by that, I don't just mean secure video like WebEx, although I do have to say that in the month of April alone, on one single day, Cisco hosted 5 million WebEx video meetings. 5 million, which means that I'm kind of concerned about some of you people. I don't know, that's a lot of meetings. But not just video collaboration, but also file sharing, really large files. I can't tell you how many times I've had to try to share a PowerPoint that was too big to email, and I had to think about, let me see, can I upload that to Teams? Do I send it in Slack? Do I put it in Box? Everybody is trying to figure out a coherent way of sharing all the different types of data that they need to share now that everybody is distributed, and now that physical access isn't necessarily possible. And then finally, securing identity. And you might think that we have this problem solved by now, but we don't. I know from my own experience as a CISO in the public and private sectors that identity and access management is a project that can go on for years. I mean, it's the interface that the business uses to access IT. And because the business is always changing, IAM has to change all the time too. So CISOs told us that they were working on consolidating, rationalizing, simplifying their IAM architecture. And a lot of this is because account takeover attacks and credential stuffing attacks are still very big. And they've only gotten worse since everybody had to move to remote access. The attackers know this, and they're stepping up their scans on the internet looking for open remote access. And of course, phishing attacks go along right with that. The point of that is to steal passwords so that they can get access. Now, phishing attacks have been with us for a long time. It's just that some of the subjects of the emails have changed. But all of this has led to the idea that CISOs want to make things easier for their users. And they also want to cut back on these attacks. And all of this is leading to the trend that we're calling passwordless. Now, it may not mean that we can completely get rid of passwords. It can mean that we use fewer passwords, that we use more single sign-on, and that for the users, it means that they have to remember and type less. And that improves the experience for them, and it also prevents them from having to deal with these credentials being stolen. If you're using multi-factor authentication, for example, then it doesn't matter if an attacker gets a password because it won't help them get in. So I'm happy to mention that Duo already has a working implementation of web authentication, WebAuthn, which is a standard that is working in the direction of passwordless. And the idea behind this is if you can get your user to authenticate to something like a phone, let's say with biometrics, instead of a password, and the secure enclave on the phone then does the rest of the authenticating in a secure cryptographic manner with other applications, then it's both more secure and it's a better experience for your users. So this is why passwordless has become such a hot topic for CISOs. And then finally, we asked them, all of these CISOs, what are the outcomes that you want from these projects? We talk a lot about activities in security, but not necessarily what specific outcomes we want to see. Now, for some of the outcomes, they were very simple. They wanted to implement something, like they wanted to implement zero trust, or they wanted to implement encryption for social security numbers or other data that they have. In some cases, the outcomes were they wanted to detect and react faster to incidents. They wanted to protect data better because now data is wider in distribution. It's distributed more widely now that everybody is working remotely. They want to simplify management, and I'm sure a lot of you can identify with that. They want to simplify the management of all of their security, and they want to align better with the business goals. Now, the one positive note that's come out from this year so far is that there were a lot of things that organizations and their security teams were afraid that they couldn't actually do, like they couldn't grant remote access to everybody. But when push came to shove, they were able to do it. And so organizations are finding out that there is security that they can accomplish that they never thought they could before. So that's the positive note that I want to end on. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day. And Ben, I'm going to hand it back to you. It's all yours.
Thank you, Wendy Nather. That was fantastic as ever. Thank you for the CISO perspective and some thoughts around our current transition to securing our remote workers. Now I'd like to transition to our next guest, continuing this theme of how we react in the current climate. We are very fortunate to have with us a representative from an organization that we have worked with for quite a while now, and that is Interpol. We're delighted to have Uk-Young Jung, who is an analyst at Interpol's Cybercrime Directorate. And Uk-Young is going to, first of all, describe a little bit about what the team does and how Interpol tries to keep the world safe and tries to collaborate cross borders around the world. But then also is going to talk a bit about cyber hygiene, if you like, in this time of pandemic, and how we can respond as an industry to that. So very fortunate to have you with us today. Uk-Young, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ben. It's a great pleasure to speak at the Secure Insights Summit. My name is Uk-Young Jung. I'm a policy analyst of Interpol Cybercrime Directorate. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Cisco for having Interpol here. Now, allow me to speak about how Interpol is reducing the global impact of cybercrime. Interpol is a neutral and global organization with 194 member countries. With the vision of connecting police for a safer world, we communicate with our member countries through a secure network called I-24/7. Interpol has 3 global crime programs focusing on counterterrorism, organized and emerging crime, and the one that concerns us, the cybercrime. Interpol Cybercrime Program is located in Singapore and is working towards the overarching goal of reducing the global impact of cybercrime and protecting communities for a safer world. Our program has 3 core pillars. The first one is the delivery of effective cybercrime threat response. The second, coordination of regional and global cybercrime operations. And the third, the development of cyber capabilities. Our work is developed based on the discussions that we have with our member countries on a regular basis. We do this by maintaining the regional and global networks of cybercrime experts. Interpol General Assembly last year, member countries have adopted a resolution endorsing the Project Gateway, which is a framework that allows us to have data sharing agreements with private sector companies. As you can see here, we currently have 13 private partners, including Cisco, who provide very valuable, up-to-date cybercrime information. So with the data and information we gather from our member countries and private partners, we develop a better understanding of global cyber threat landscape to design a prioritized and targeted response. In fact, our core activity is to collect, process, analyze, and disseminate cybercrime information to better support our member countries. So through this process, our recent assessment of the global landscape was that cyber criminals are taking advantage of the COVID-19 pandemic to launch a variety of cyber attacks. The key point here was that these were not completely new threats, but rather known ones wearing new masks. So for instance, some of the known malware which had been relatively dormant in the last few months or years were redetected since the outbreak began, using COVID-19 to boost their social engineering tactics. Although these cyber threats are constantly evolving, we have identified a few prominent ones: malicious domain, there has been an increase in domains registered with the keywords of COVID or Corona, obviously due to the interest for information about the global pandemic. And many of these were considered to be developed with malicious intent. In the beginning, we were informed that there were about 40,000 high-risk newly registered domains. Disruptive malware such as ransomware. Cybercriminals are increasingly seeking targets for the deployment of ransomware where the system access or data is critical to demand for higher ransom. So more and more governments, critical infrastructure, and healthcare organizations are being targeted during COVID-19. Online scams and phishing, and of course, the thirst for information on COVID-19 online and the extreme need for key supplies and healthcare products provided a very ideal scenario for criminals to take advantage. For instance, criminals send COVID-19 themed phishing emails attaching malicious documents to exploit a vulnerability to run malicious code or to steal user credentials and passwords. And they also create a fraudulent website related to COVID-19 to lure victims into providing personal details or sensitive information. Another key threat that we observed is related to the remote workforce. An anticipated surge in remote working overburdened the security measures that were put in place prior to the virus outbreak. So cybercriminals can steal employees' credentials through, for instance, unpatched office tools and software, and these stolen credentials are often used for further cyber attacks. In addition, there was a significant rise in the number of cyber attacks targeting teleconference tools since January 2020. And VPN connections and vulnerabilities are also being targeted to deliver malware. Around March, we started to get a few requests from member countries to support them on ransomware attacks. So we have issued a purple notice, which is similar to the famous Interpol red notice, but this is more about the crime itself, to inform all our member countries on the fact that the organizations at the forefront of the response to the COVID-19 outbreak are being the target. Cybercriminals were using ransomware to hold hospitals and medical centers hostage, preventing them from accessing vital data and systems related to patients and medical devices. So we have provided our support to these victim organizations in terms of technical guidance for recovery and prevention of further damage. And around this time, we also thought that we should alert the public to these COVID-19 cyber threats, which can really make things worse in an already dire situation in the physical world. So we decided to run a global awareness campaign called Wash Your Cyber Hands for a month in May. So let me show you some infographics that we used during the campaign. This one is to let people know about ransomware attacks. Our advice here is that if this actually happens to anyone, do not panic and don't pay, because payment doesn't guarantee that you will get your data back. And please contact your local police. It is extremely important that cybercrime is reported to police just like any other crimes on the streets, so that we can actually solve and mitigate them. For online scams and phishing, our advice was to watch out for spelling mistakes in email addresses or links, generic greetings, and any random requests that is requiring for your personal information or something that insists you to act immediately with a sense of urgency. For working from home threats, we provided some recommendations for companies on how to secure their remote workforce and also their important data. The long-term effect of COVID-19 in the cyber domain is that we would definitely see further increase in cybercrime, as other types of crimes might be affected, and therefore criminals will look for other revenue streams, especially online. As a result, some criminals might take advantage of a dark market to look for cybercrime as a service, which guarantees an easy entry for them. We will see the continued cyber attacks against the healthcare sector and associated supply chains due to their critical data and also the growing demand for their services. When COVID-19 vaccination or medication will be released, there might be another spike in phishing or online scams. Business email compromise might also surge, involving the spoofing of supplier and client email addresses. In the long term, if more and more people work from home, there will be a further increase in security threats. Therefore, securing your home network and also keeping good cyber hygiene should be the new normal. Organizations should set up clear guidelines and security policies that ensure a data backup plan, multi-factor authentication, and sufficient digital capacity. To protect our growing digital economies and remote workforce, an alliance of various stakeholders within the global ecosystem of cybersecurity is imperative. An Interpol cybercrime program is ready to enhance partnerships with not only law enforcement communities and private partners, but also with national CERTs, international and regional organizations, NGOs, civil society, and global governance fora. All these efforts are to make the world a safer place, whether it's on the street or in the cyberspace. Thank you very much, everyone, and back to you, Ben.
Thanks very much to Ukyung from Interpol's Cybercrime Directorate. That was fascinating. It's always good to hear from Interpol. It's always interesting the scale of the operations that they have and the complexity that they're dealing with. And we're very grateful for the partnership and for Ukyung taking some time today to talk more about that. Again, keeping with the theme of securing remote workers, I want to welcome one of my colleagues on to talk a bit more about that. If you're just joining us, this is the Cisco Secure Insights Summit. We're grateful for your time today. If you're watching on social media, please share it. If you're watching this on the website, I think right now you should see the URL below me that you can use to share. And please make sure you use the hashtag Cisco Secure Summit. This is being broadcast across 25 countries and in 4 languages, not including English. So welcome, and on with the next topic. We have got Senior Director from the Cisco Security Business Group, Chandro Prasad. I'm delighted to welcome Chandro to the summit, and he's going to talk a bit about how we've transitioned from the emergency response around COVID-19 and helping all of our customers to very quickly, very rapidly to secure their remote workers at scale, and how we really need to think about that as a new way of helping customers architect their IT infrastructure and their security infrastructure, because clearly, having made that rapid change, we're all not shifting back. You know, there's going to be a little bit of return, but there's also going to be a lot of transformation in this next phase of our development. So Chandro is going to tell you much more about that. So let me just hand over straight to him now. Welcome, Chandro. Over to you.
Ben, thank you for the warm introduction. And folks, thanks for taking the time to join us this morning. My name is Chandrodaya Prasad. I'm a Senior Director at Cisco Security Business Group. Amongst all of the initiatives that I manage, the Cisco Secure Remote Worker that I'm going to talk about today is probably one of the most important topics that we will be talking about, given everything that's going on in the broader scheme of things. So if we look back a few months ago, the traditional workplace for a lot of us has been about getting up in the morning, getting dressed, commuting to work, meeting people, and then heading back. The new workplace, or the new norm right now, and most of us are working from home, and this seems to be the evolving workplace of the future. Based on the feedback that we've heard, this will likely be a long-term scenario because even after the pandemic crisis subsides, employers and employees are realizing the benefits. They're finding value in teleworker scenarios because of 1, increased productivity, number 2, lowered overall cost, and 3, overall burden of change management. So as companies shifted to remote work, it has brought about a sudden strain on both the IT and the security teams. These teams have been tasked with providing support for an unprecedented number of remote workers as well as devices. With this transition, we are seeing a renewed need for shifting from legacy architectures, not just around the network, but around security as well as applications. So given all the activity over the last 2 months since we launched this offer, we see 3 categories of customers coming to us. Number 1, some categories who are well underway on their cloud transition, and this shift has been a very seamless process. So as customer 0, this is a category that Cisco fell into. Number 2, enterprises that already had an existing remote worker infrastructure in place, but needed additional capacity to support the sudden influx of users and devices. And the third are those customers who working from home or remote was something that was never taken into consideration. The preference for these customers was to be on site, be physically present, and remote working, other than maybe accessing a few applications in the cloud, was never a hard requirement. Both the employers and the employees are realizing some obvious benefits. From an employer perspective, the lower overhead cost, as you see on the slide, translates to increased productivity, lowered, say, for example, real estate cost, reduced absenteeism and turnover, and better disaster preparedness. From an employee perspective, the lower employee cost translates to, say, reduced costs in commuting or travel. Simple things as parking. I actually take almost about, on a busy day, take anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour to get to work, even though I live maybe about 5 miles away from work. I save on going to a cafe, going to a restaurant for lunch and whatnot. So ultimately, both employees and employers are seeing an overall increase in higher productivity and efficiency with some of the transitions that are in place. Up until now, we've talked about the benefits, and the benefits of the new workplace or the new paradigm is obvious. This does not come without its challenges. See, the unfortunate thing about this pandemic is that there are a lot of malicious people out there to exploit the situation. These malicious activities can be phishing, can be state-sponsored elections, numerous reasons. So in addition, the home network is not so simple anymore. When I think about my own home network, between my wife and my kids, we've got a bunch of devices, both corporate owned and personal, as well as smart devices like my security cameras, my smart lighting systems, my smart water sprinkler systems, all accessing and sharing the same resources on the network. So from an end customer perspective, there is a demand to have the same experience and the same security posture as they did in the corporate enterprises. But the IT and the security teams are being asked the obvious questions. And those questions are, hey, can you tell me who's accessing the network? Can you tell me what devices are coming onto the network? Are these devices employee owned or are these personal devices? If they are employee owned, do they have the right policies in place? Do these devices have the right software patches? Do they have any malware content on them? What applications are being accessed? Are they being accessed over VPN or over cloud? And last but not the least, the CISOs are looking at this and saying, can we provide a seamless experience without incurring significant OPEX and CAPEX costs? So regardless of what business you're into, your IT and security team need to have the following in consideration. One, first and foremost, make sure that a physical connection that exists, the identity and the trust are established both from a user and a device perspective. There is safe access to company access and data, again, whether the data is on-prem or in the cloud. Protect that data from threats, and obviously make security frictionless as you integrate that into a broader ecosystem. As the pandemic came about, we addressed the immediate security concerns and the impact of increased remote workers by offering a solution that helped our enterprises and enabled their employees to, one, work from anywhere, be it on their personal devices, corporate-owned devices, or on their mobile devices. Secondly, help them verify user identities and make sure that the device trust was established, providing access to corporate applications, and confidently work while protecting for malicious content, malicious internet destinations, both on the network and off the network. As part of our secure remote worker offer, which was launched on the 12th of March, Cisco is providing extended free licenses and expanded usage counts at no additional cost for the following 4 products. And the 4 products that are included as part of these offers are the Cisco AnyConnect Mobility Client, Duo which provides multi-factor authentication, Umbrella DNS, which protects users either off-net or on-net, and last but not the least, Cisco's Advanced Malware Protection for Endpoints, or AMP for Endpoints as we call it. And these products actually fall into 2 main categories. First category is to verify the identity of users and devices. That's what Duo and AnyConnect does. And the second category is to detect and remediate threats. That's what Umbrella and AMP does. I'll provide a quick overview of each of these in the next few slides. So we talked about AnyConnect in my previous slide. AnyConnect is the foundation that provides secure connectivity from anywhere. When I say access from anywhere, it also means access from any device, anytime, and from any location. Secondly, AnyConnect provides you as an IT admin an unmatched visibility of who and what is accessing the network. So with the data that's available, such as login data, the IT personnel can take a closer look at the roaming laptop user's activity, or make changes to the policy from the headquarters or remotely. And these policies are immediately enforced across an individual user or a group of users or a device, regardless of the location. Finally, the solution is very robust and scalable. Even at Cisco, where we have upwards of 100,000 employees, we have seen a massive spike around working from home and connecting into the corporate environment for users like us. has been seamless with no issues at all. And last but not the least, the number of AnyConnect clients out there is astronomical, and Cisco by far has the largest footprint in the world. So again, just to recap, the 4 points that I was making around AnyConnect: working from anywhere, expanding visibility, ease of use, and systematically protecting users when connected to the network. So Duo is a company that we acquired. It's a little over a year now. So as you have more remote workers coming online, and with a BYOD concept that is being encouraged by a lot of enterprises, the first step for an IT administrator is to establish device visibility and hygiene. And assuming that the user is trusted, Duo software that runs on your devices enforces that both the managed as well as your unmanaged device prove trustworthiness through security health inspections for things like updated operating system, known vulnerabilities in applications downloaded from the internet, and so on. Duo offers control to inform users of these problems and directs them to update software and automatically enforce policies to block devices if they don't meet the minimum security requirements. So in addition to, once the device is trusted, Duo then enables connection to applications in the cloud or on-prem, and these policies can be enforced at an individual level or a group level or an application level, as an example. So the policies can also have can also be based on geographic location. You can have a policy that states somebody from APJ or Asia Pacific cannot access resources in North America, as an example. Last but not the least, in terms of authentication, Duo pioneered push-based authentication. So all you need is to simply tap a button on the phone to get access to your applications. So in addition to all of the benefits that I just talked about, Duo supports a variety of authentication methods like SMS, phone call, soft token, etc. I spoke to you about IoT devices. I spoke to you about cloud first. I spoke to you about malicious websites that are out there and bad actors. Over 90% of the malware that is running on your machine wants to establish a connection back into your command and control. What happens if that malware running on your home network, be it on your corporate device or on your personal devices, establishes a secure connection to that command and control? The damage is unprecedented, as we all know. They can encrypt your machine, they can deploy ransomware, a bunch of things. Since DNS is the first step in internet connection, Cisco Umbrella can be the first line of defense that protects you and your customers off the network as well as on the network. The Umbrella solution at a very high level: one, it sees all the internet traffic across all users. It blocks attacks earlier, even before they get onto your endpoint or onto your network. It contains the malware that is already inside by blocking callbacks to the attacker's infrastructure. And last but not the least, it easily enforces web filtering using content for 80 plus content categories. So extremely powerful solution. Last but not the least is Cisco AMP for Endpoints, which is a cloud-managed next-generation endpoint security solution that not only prevents cyber attacks, but also rapidly detects, contains, and remediates malicious files if they evade defenses and infiltrate your endpoints, even before the damage can be done. So long story short, Cisco Umbrella and Cisco Endpoints together provide the first and the last line of defense to help you prevent and detect and respond to attacks before the damage can be done. Umbrella prevents connection to malicious destinations and command and control callbacks at the DNS layer and IP layers, while AMP works at the file to prevent the initial malware execution, and it tracks file behavior over time. Again, all these solutions that I just talked about is backed up by our industry-leading threat intelligence capability called Cisco Talos. Some of you might be aware of what Cisco Talos is. The volume of data that we process via Talos is unbelievable. We block 20 billion threats daily, as you see on your slide. Talos is a group comprised of 300 plus PhD level graduates working 365 days, 24 hours, mitigate threats. It is the largest non-government threat research organization on the planet. Our principle is very simple. You can't protect what you can't see. So we see more threats, more malware, more attacks than any other security vendor in the world. So when you see more, obviously you can block more. And the good news is Cisco Talos is available for free and comes with any Cisco product that you buy. So all these is a part of Cisco's broader approach to security stacks across three main pillars: the endpoint, the network, and the cloud. We've got a rich, robust portfolio that covers all these three major pillars, and all of these are extremely well integrated. Plus, the platform is open to third-party integration. There is a unified visibility. across your infrastructure, and this seamlessly integrates into your existing capabilities. Last but not the least, Cisco security capabilities are number one in almost all of the pillars that we talked about, and very well recognized by all of the top analysts that you see on the slide here. So call to action, there is a ton of resources available on cisco.com. If you search for Cisco Secure Remote Worker, it will point you to the right webpage on cisco.com. Again, a ton of resources, technical guides, architecture guides. Please reach out to your Cisco salesperson, and if you need any help, we are more than happy to step in and help out. Again, thank you for your time and stay safe.
Thank you, Chandro. So now, in terms of another transition, we're going to move from secure remote work really into a much deeper dive on Zero Trust. And if you're just joining us, this is the Cisco Secure Insights Summit. This is an exploration of security topics, including our platform approach to security and how security should work as a team. And today's theme is Zero Trust and the secure remote worker. So we just heard from Wendy Nather, we heard from Ukyung Jung from Interpol, and we heard from Chandra Prasad talking about this secure remote worker challenge. And now we need to pivot, and we're going to talk about Zero Trust, and who better to help lead off this part of the discussion than Dr. Chase Cunningham. Chase is someone we know very well, someone who is a principal analyst at Forrester and who has covered a wide range of cybersecurity topics over the years, and someone who is now known principally for some of the work he's done around Zero Trust, including leading the Forrester Wave for Zero Trust, and a lot of appearances and discussions and debates that center around that. So he's got a lot going on, and we're really grateful that he's spending a bit of time with us today to talk about Zero Trust in a new world. So please welcome Chase, and I'm going to hand over to you and say, take it away, Chase.
Hey, hello there. This is Dr. Chase Cunningham. I'm a principal analyst on the security and risk team at Forrester Research. Today, briefly, we're going to talk about Zero Trust and how this global strategy is taking hold. So just to give you some background on what Zero Trust is, you've probably heard about it in the news or seen it on TV, or maybe you've gotten some emails or something around Zero Trust. People always ask, well, what is the definition of this? Well, this is the tagline: Zero Trust, never trust, always verify. Well, that's the difference between the old way of trust but verify. This is never trust, always verify. Now, a lot of folks will say, well, what is the definition of Zero Trust? Well, to be honest with you, real strategy doesn't have a biblical definition, if you will. It has referential sort of points and thoughts and ideas and concepts that are applicable, but there is no singular governing body that tells us what this one thing is. However, being that Forrester is the group that coined the term Zero Trust back in 2010, a decade ago, this is what our current sort of broad definition of what Zero Trust means for individuals. Zero Trust is strategically focused on addressing lateral threat movement within the network by leveraging microsegmentation and granular enforcement based on user context, data access control, location, application, and the device posture. Now, on this graphic, you can see that I also have the death of the password. And the reason I have that is because if you really think about what you're getting to with this approach, you're getting to the death of the password. And if we can kill the password, we kill one of the largest areas for compromise in the history of cybersecurity. So when folks ask, what is the definition of Zero Trust? This is what I would point them to. This is what I would suggest that you point them to. And I think that this is a pretty applicable definition that covers kind of the entirety of the Zero Trust space. Now, because you've heard of ZT and because we're talking about it, let me give you a little bit of history on this and let you know why this is not necessarily just a flash in the pan, something that we just came up with recently. So Zero Trust actually goes all the way back to 2004. Late 2003, to be perfectly honest, with a group called the Jericho Forum. Now, the Jericho Forum was a group of academics and researchers and industry folks that were basically sitting around going, what does the future of security look like? How can we move past just a firewall and the boundary that we put up in this network? Well, their idea was what they called de-perimeterized security. This is actually the earliest slide deck that I could find for this thing from Professor Clark Tomberson on the 10th of September, 2007. So this is what I consider to be one of the sandstones, if you will, or Sanskrits for early ZT. The idea being it was no perimeter, it was outside the bounds of regular enterprise security, and it was something that was going to be much more dynamic in nature than just big walls, bad guys on one side, us on the other. So ZT really started in 2004. Jericho Forum was formally established. Really talking about network access control was what they were getting into. The next step from firewalls. You probably heard about next-gen firewalls and those type of things. All of that was kind of bubbling up around this particular time. Fast forward 2010, Forrester had an analyst named John Kindervog who was reading a bunch of research and had this idea of, well, deperimeterized security actually sounds a lot like removing trust from infrastructure, which is a human emotion. So he coined the term zero trust. And it kind of sat there for a while. Now move forward a little bit more towards 2014. You get into Microsoft assuming breach, Google publishing their Beyond Corp methodology and infrastructure. 2016, 2017, you get a book, you get a lot of stuff around conditional access. And now 2020-ish, we're getting into moving into the passwordless world where we're using identity to really be the crux of this whole ZT organizational infrastructure, architecture, dynamism, all that. And if you look at the bottom, you can kind of tell when we were focusing on the network way back 2003, 2004, which remember that's 16 plus years to now where we're getting into identity. This is much more dynamic. This is where we tend to think that things change and manipulate and move. So this is where ZT kind of stands today, is identity is at the core of this ZT infrastructure. So zero trust architecture, this is what one typically looks like. Identities, devices, data applications, infrastructure, networking, visibility analytics, automation, orchestration. With everything in the center of this being orchestrated by some sort of brain, some sort of policy engine, some sort of something that is basically saying, you can talk to this and not to that. In the middle of all this, I will use telemetry, I will use information, multi-factor, out-of-band, device inventory, all those things to make this all work together. In the real world, this is what an emblematic zero trust architecture and infrastructure looks like. And this is what most organizations are trying to move to. If you look at Beyond Corp, if you look at the DoD's NIST 800-207 series, whichever sort of architecture you really dive in on, this is what, in general, a ZT system should look like. So zero trust really is about a singular strategy over multiple avenues in a long life cycle. If you think about cybersecurity, you think about space, there are multiple avenues, there are many problems that you have to solve. This is going to take a long time. There is no way that you're just going to hit a zero trust button and suddenly be zero trusty. This is going to take a lot of time. Think about it. You've probably spent 20, 30, in some instances, 40 years building that infrastructure. So if that's the case, how could you possibly think that you're just going to rip it apart, replace, and turn it over, and all of a sudden it's going to be some whole other strategy that's applied? This is going to take a long time. A lot of the organizations I deal with are looking at 10-year life cycles. And I think that that's pretty conservative. If you've dug a hole for 20 years, getting out of it in half the time, probably pretty practically applicable. And let me remind you that being compliant is not a strategy. If being compliant was a strategy, no organization that was compliant would ever have showed up on USA Today. Many, many organizations have been breached that were fully compliant. Compliance is not a strategy. Being compliant is needed to do business because there are laws and legalities and those type of things, but being compliant and in compliance is not a strategy. Being secure is not a strategy. No organization out there is ever going to say we want to be less secure or we're good with our current level of security. Everyone wants to be more secure. That is not a strategy. That is something that you do with your strategy being implemented. And implementing controls and technology is not a strategy. If you're implementing more stuff, you're just buying more things and throwing it at the problem, and maybe you get it right, maybe you don't. In reality, if implementing controls and technology was the win, we would have already won this game because we've spent hundreds of billions of dollars to get towards a more secure end state. But compliance has failed us. Being secure has not enabled that outcome, and buying more stuff and throwing it in the mix has not actually equaled security. So zero trust, the reality of it is, the reason why it's taking off like it is because this is a singular strategy over multiple avenues that comprises the entirety of security space in a long life cycle. Now, the tenets of zero trust can change slightly differently, but really this is what we think you're coming to when you're getting into ZT. You focus on the outcomes, and what I mean by the outcomes is I don't necessarily mean security outcomes. I mean business outcomes, more clients, more money, more optimized budget, better use of resources, all those things that make businesses better. Because at the end of the day, what security is actually supposed to be is the department of go, not the department of no. If we as security people focus on enabling business and make it more secure, make it more effortless, make it more powerful for the end users, the clients, the customers, all those folks, we win because they win. It changes the game when you focus on the outcomes and you're actually able to have the conversations around, look, if you do these things because of my strategy, I will help you grow the bottom line. Business folks understand growing the bottom line. They don't understand buying more firewalls or more IDaaS or more PAM or whatever else. So focus on the outcomes for the business. Design from the inside outside. Think about the micro to the macro. Stop solving for being more secure. Start solving for, let's solve our identity and access management problem. And we're going to do it 100%. And we're going to do all the things we have to do. And we're going to move to the next thing. Not having 3 or 4 or 5 parallel threads and never getting any one of them done, because that just leaves you open for more avenues of compromise. Starting with the assets and data that needs protection. Think about what is critical to the organization. If you got breached, what would cause detriment and failure? That's what you focus on protecting first. It used to be you would say, let's put micro perimeters around a particular data asset. Well, in reality, that's not necessarily practical. What we're trying to get to is taking care of the most practical things in the center of that graphic and working our way around it with those other core capabilities. Think about who or what needs access and why they need access. Access is actually what kills organizations, compromises, and breaches. If a user has more access than they need for the purposes of doing their job, that's a problem, because when that user gets breached, the bad guys have all those accesses to go towards all those assets. Need to know and least privilege. There should not be things in dev that have access to stuff in HR just because it was spun up that way. Do they need to know it? Do they need to have access to it? And if so, they only get the least privilege that they need in order to do that work role. That's what we're trying to get to. And lastly, inspecting and logging all traffic. A lot of times folks think that ZT means having the best analytics all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean that. What it means is having the best analytics, the best telemetry, the best data that enables automation, orchestration, visibility, and analytics so that you can secure these other core components across the entirety of that infrastructure and space. Inspecting and logging all traffic is how you do that. But you should be focusing on the outcomes that come from doing things like need to know, least privileged, access, assets that need protection, and focusing on inside to outside. This is what the entirety of ZT and our research-based approach to it makes the most sense. And I think if you really dive in on this and you understand the criticalities, the inner workings, and the core components that are necessary to enable ZT, this is what good zero trust looks like.
Thank you to Dr. Chase Cunningham, Principal Analyst at Forrester, for that look at the zero trust in a new world. And you're going to hear a lot more from Chase in the months to come. Now let's transition to Cisco's perspective on zero trust. So we heard about the industry definition. We heard a bit more about where that's going. Now we'd love to present you with our thoughts. This is the Cisco Secure Insights Summit, and it's now time for Cisco's response to zero trust. And we boil it down to 3 W's. We have an enormous portfolio of products that we work with our customers on in various different combinations, and we've built our security platform, Cisco Secure X. We recognize that for customers of different sizes, in different industries, in different countries, facing different levels of their own security maturity journey, the answer to zero trust can seem bewildering, as with any of the frameworks that we apply in the security industry. So we came up with 3 W's. That is the starting point, that are like the starting building blocks for zero trust. It isn't a silver bullet solution, but it's a place to begin from. And those 3 W's are workload, workplace, and workforce. And you're going to hear from Cisco security experts in each of those in just a moment. Let me set those up and then I'll hand over. First of all, workload. That's about data and applications having moved into the cloud. How do you provide the right level of microsegmentation? How do you apply policy and security to secure access to those workloads? Second of those is workplace. So we still have physical networks and infrastructure, printers, IoT devices, laptops entering buildings, needing to be provisioned with access. How do you apply secure access to the physical infrastructure? And then lastly, probably the most important, if you think about recent times of those W's, the workforce, user and devices. Wherever they are, increasingly remote, those workers need to be able to access critical applications and critical data wherever they might be logging in from. So we want to talk a bit about multi-factor authentication. So 3 W's, workload, workplace, and workforce. As a quick reminder, you're watching the Cisco Secure Insights Summit. We're delighted to have you with us. Share us on social media. Tell all your friends and colleagues. Use this URL to share it with everybody that you know, and use the hashtag Cisco Secure Summit. Without further ado, I want to bring on our distinguished systems architect, Jamie Heary, who's going to talk about workload and in the context of zero trust. So, Jamie, over to you.
Thanks, Ben. Okay, let's get into this. So our first W, workload. That's the first W we're going to talk about in the Cisco Zero Trust architecture. And let's get right into it. Of course, we have a huge portfolio at Cisco, and it was part of our job to look at our portfolio and which widgets go best with which W. And it's pretty clear that Cisco Tetration is the best fit for workload security. There's a lot of other things that can happen inside of workload security, not just Tetration, but it certainly is our primary solution for doing workload security. So what is it all about? Well, if you look at this circle here, we have containing lateral movement. I mean, think about server-on-server attacks, that east-west security that's so important. When a server gets compromised, we want to make sure that we're reducing the scope that's possible during that breach time. Also, continuously tracking security compliance. I mean, all of us have a constant battle with patching and making sure that our applications have the least amount of vulnerabilities possible at all given times. So wouldn't it be nice to have something like Tetration that keeps tabs on that for me? What about identifying anomalies? I mean, if all of a sudden my web server starts exfiltrating data to some place that is a known bad repository, I want to know that. I want to know the behavior has drastically changed from what it did day in, day out. All of a sudden, something else. And then reducing the attack surface. I mean, this is so important. As our folks are working from home and they're coming into our data centers and into our workloads from places that are frankly unknown. They're maybe using devices that are unknown as well. It's very important to make sure that our workloads have the least amount of attack surface possible. They're super locked down. Super easy to say, really hard to do. So we're going to show you how Tetration can help there. And then finally, unifying visibility and enabling automation so that this thing kind of feeds itself and is a lot less burden on the IT staff to get it done. So how do we use Tetration to establish trust? There's really three phases that we go through. The first one is all about establishing trust through visibility and behavior modeling. Tetration does that in a couple ways. First way is it does application discovery and dependency mapping. So in a nutshell, it's going to be deployed in your data center on all your workloads as an agent. That agent is then going to look at everything that happens and come back with a report that tells you that Oracle server does exactly these things. This is who it talks to from a client perspective, as well as who it talks to from additional workload perspective. All the processes and files and command lines that are running, all the users that are hitting that, all are going to be known to you, maybe for the first time. And that will allow you to start to build that whitelist zero trust policy. So once we have that visibility, we move to the next phase, which is how do I enforce this trust-based access control? So we have per workload micro-segmentation policy, and we do this in an automated fashion. So we can take that visibility we just had, and we can export it into a policy, a really robust policy that we know works because we just created it based on what we saw in real life data of that application workload. And then finally, we can't just stop there because everything changes. Our worlds are so dynamic, especially at the workload level. So we have to involve continuous trust verification. It's got to be real time so that we can make sure that we're doing the security is still in place that we thought was in place. We're constantly making sure that our zero trust model is still true. And then we're taking context from outside of Tetration, things like, hey, did it just get infected with malware and our next-gen firewall told us that? Well, that should change the trust level of our workload. And sure enough, that's what Tetration can do, working with other products like next-gen firewall and third parties as well. Up in the upper right-hand corner, you kind of see a little bit of the entry price points for this. We're looking at from a SaaS standpoint. So if you want Tetration as a service, $35 per month per workload. So a really good starting point, $40K to start, about 100 workloads. And licensing is simple. Just one license for everything. You get all the stuff we're going to talk about today. So to understand your workloads, Tetration has a lot of different things it offers. One is automated discovery and what we call clustering. So that icon on the left-hand side is what we call a cluster diagram. It tells you exactly what applications talk to other applications and how they do it, like what ports and protocols they're using to converse. And then the next way that we do it is through this application dependency map. It shows really great detail of exactly how the different component parts of your whole process works. And it shows it here from all the way from the users that are coming into the front end, and then how that front end is getting data from the databases, from the card processing machines, from the bill generator, and it shows you how it all works. Maybe for the first time, you're understanding how that application and its component parts actually communicate. Then we can take this and put it into a policy, like is shown below. That policy can include user data. Like, I'm only gonna allow you to talk to clients that have a posture that's compliant with my workload, or with my client posture assessment. Like, if they turn off their antivirus, they don't get any more access into my application. We can also understand security group tags. So if, like, Identity Services Engine put somebody into quarantine because they did something malicious, well, I don't want my workload talking to them either. So that's where you see that second line that says SGT equals quarantine. That attribute is coming from Identity Services Engine. So pretty cool when you integrate the end-to-end architecture here from the user all the way to the workload. Now think about this from a work from home perspective, where those users coming in through VPN maybe, they're gonna be given an SGT themselves as well. They're gonna be given a group tag. Now Tetration can use it. Another real important part of Tetration is the compliance dashboard. And here's a brief snapshot of it. You have your overall scoring of what is my compliance of all these workloads together. And then we break it down into its component parts. Now, what does make up a B score for my data center here? And we break it down into 6 different ways. One is a vulnerability score. Tetration has the ability to look at every single package and application that's loaded on those servers and then do a vulnerability assessment of them. Okay, you're running Oracle version 10. We know Oracle version 10 has these 500 vulnerabilities that apply with that. And then you can make really good decisions on where to put your workforce to remediate these vulnerabilities in a methodical way. The next one is it does a hash of all of the processes running, all the applications you have running, and then runs them through a database of known malware hashes. If we get a match, it'll show up here. And across the way, I'm not going to go through each one of them in the interest of time, but just know that we're doing a comprehensive look at how secure your workloads are at any given time. And most importantly, where to focus your efforts. When you look at your environment, where to focus your efforts first at the most vulnerable and the most damaging areas. So workforce context that we have, especially from a work from home environment with an AnyConnect user, for example, coming in, or an ICE user, somebody that's authenticating through ICE, maybe at a home switch or home wireless setup. That context, we can use it at the workload side to help us enrich that zero trust policy. So let's take a look at how we might use this. The first way would be a segmentation policy that brings both worlds together, the workforce side and the workload side. And I want to say that only the group finance users are able to access the financial reporting system. But printers, they can't connect to any of the database servers. Like, why would they? If they are, that's a problem, right? They're probably infected with some kind of malware that's trying to propagate itself. So when we break this down, Tetration's allowing us to create that end-to-end unified zero trust policy. But we started with, on the left-hand side there, auto-generated behavior-based policies. It went out and found my whole application structure. It modeled it. It told me exactly how that application works, how it communicates, who it communicates with. And in the middle, I can then enrich that with context and metadata from other things like VMware. I can go to VMware and grab observables from VMware and those attributes. From Kubernetes, I can grab container-based attributes. DNS systems, just a lot of third-party data that I can enrich that policy with and use those objects in my zero trust policy. And then finally on the right-hand side is the user and device context. And that comes primarily from 2 places. It comes from AnyConnect NVM and ICE. So let's drill into those ones a little bit. So here we have on the first top pane there, that's all AnyConnect. So AnyConnect is answering very good questions that we might have about who's talking to my workload. Is it John? If it's John, what's the context around John? Is he a member of the finance group or is he a contractor? I would really want to know that before I give John access to that workload. What about the device that John's on? Is it one of my corporate devices? Is it a Windows machine? Is it a mobile device? Is it grandma's machine? I want to know that too, because it might affect the access that I give, and it definitely will affect the trust level that I have for John. I would like to know the posture of John's machine, like what processes are running. And when I see a flow at the workload, I can tie that flow all the way back to the actual process, the application on John's machine through AnyConnect. What created that flow? Was that a Chrome browser? Was that a malicious piece of code that's running on John's machine? I'll be able to tell exactly what created that. Down below is ICE. So ICE with PX Grid integration directly into Tetration provides us the ability to do rich telemetry data from endpoints as well. This will include, device profiles. Is that a printer, some other IoT device that I know about? Is it a user? If it is, what do I know about that user? It can do security group tags, which are our ability to do dynamic grouping of things and use those policies use those objects rather in policies inside of Tetration. So a group might be finance users. A group might be biomedical devices. You can determine what kind of groups you need there. It also has very rich mobile device properties. So you can get MDM-like posture out of it. For example, you could have a policy that said, you can't talk to my workload if you're on a jailbroken iPhone. Like, how cool is that? Really getting that end-to-end integration. All right, now let's wrap it up for that W. We walked you through, a lot of things about workload, how we can make a workload policy that has relevance to a secure remote worker. So now as your workforce is outside of your normal campus, we still have the ability to create these really contextual rich policies all the way down to the workloads that are still resident at your data center. And those users that are VPNing in by the droves with whatever kind of machine and whatever kind of environment, you now have that zero trust policy in place with that much reduced footprint from an attack surface perspective. And with that, I'll hand it off to the next W.
Thank you, Jamie. Really excited to be here today. My name is Justin Buchanan. I'm Director of Product Management for Identity Services Engine. Really excited to talk to you today about some of the things that we're doing for Zero Trust for the workplace. For those of you that don't know, this is Cisco's preeminent solution in order to secure workplace resources. And so when we look across Zero Trust for the workplace, there's a couple of different things that we can do. Really, we look around visibility, segmentation, and compliance, and I'll talk through all three of those. From a component perspective, there's two main parts to Zero Trust for the workplace. That's Identity Services Engine and DNA Center. I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing for both of those. On the visibility side, obviously ICE today does a very good job of profiling end devices. We have a new tool coming out called Cisco AI Endpoint Analytics that allows us to go deeper into the network to get even better visibility. We're leveraging DPI and machine learning to really narrow down and focus on those unknowns and hopefully reduce them to just about zero. Additionally, we have some new features coming out from a posture perspective that I'll talk about in some upcoming slides. So once we have that great visibility in the network, what we want to do is we want to be able to segment those users and devices, right? And so as an example of this, we really don't want maybe our IT cameras or security cameras on the same network as our corporate assets. A lot of these IoT devices today have very old versions of firmware that hackers can get into. If you look at things like WannaCry, etc., once hackers are able to get into a network, they can move laterally, and segmentation really helps to cut down on any sort of lateral movement within the network. Finally, once we have segmentation, we move to containment. And we can do containment really a number of different ways, but the main way we do it is via the PXCrypt ecosystem. We've been growing this ecosystem for over 3 or 4 years now. We've gone from just 3 or 4 partners all the way up to 80 partners today. From a PXCrypt perspective, what we're really looking at is the ecosystem and indication of compromise that we see from these ecosystem partners. And so, for example, you may have StealthWatch on your network today. We can leverage an indication of compromise from StealthWatch, and we can take a remediated action in ICE to very quickly identify a threat and take it off your network. We know that a lot of people are working from home today too, so I wanted to talk about some of the things that ICE can do to help you out there. Again, we have a number of customers that are looking at how can they provide the same level of access and, quite frankly, the same level of compliance checks that they've done to assets when they're on their corporate network. We know that a lot of people are maybe using their own devices, maybe they're using corporate-owned assets, but we really feel that posture checks are one way to accomplish this. If you look at some of the benefits, you'll see you're able to maintain the same level of security compliance even during work from home. Apply same or different policies on the networks, depending on what you choose. You may want to provide users actually less access, given that they're working from home, than they would have on campus. And then more importantly, you want to provide them that same experience, right? And so making sure that those employees, those remote employees, are able to be just as productive when they're working from home as they are when they're in the office. From a posture perspective, there's a number of things we can do, and there's a number of ways in which we can implement that. The way that you may be familiar with today is via agent-based posture. And what we can do is we can leverage AnyConnect, and within AnyConnect, the ICE posture module is part of that. That posture module then allows you to do all those checks that you see on the right over there, whether it be anti-malware, anti-spyware, do you want to allow people to plug USBs in? Do you need to do disk encryption? Whatever you choose, you can choose those policies that suit your need and apply those policies as these users come onto the network. On the left side, you see the flow there. And basically what we're doing, we're checking, do we know this device? If we do know this device, does it have the right level of posture, right? If it doesn't, we'll allow that device to ultimately be remediated to, whether they need to put some new anti-malware software on, whatever it may be. And then finally, we'll allow network access for that end user device. Super powerful, super important, especially in these times. Additionally, we have what's called agentless posture. And so we have talked to a number of customers that, quite frankly, didn't want to go through the process of deploying an agent for whatever reason, right? And so really agentless posture, what that allows us to do is to go out and check a machine very quickly and not leave any trace, quite frankly, that we were there. We can do all the same posture checks that I talked about before, whether it be, again, anti-malware, anti-spyware, USB, etc. Once that device is either deemed compliant or non-compliant, we then ultimately allow it onto the network. And so really what we're trying to do is give you guys different ways in which you can ultimately apply security policy to these devices. In summary, ICE is at the heart of Cisco's Zero Trust solution, right? We talked about visibility, we talked about segmentation, we talked about compliance, we talked about rapid threat containment, and we talked about secure access. So if you're looking for the best Zero Trust devices on the network today, ICE is the way to go. And now, over to you, Ash. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Justin. That was wonderful to learn about Zero Trust for Workplace. Hello, everyone. My name is Ash Devada. I'm the head of products for Duo and Zero Trust for Workforce here at Cisco. I'm very excited today to talk about Zero Trust for Workforce. What does it actually mean? What problems does it solve for you? And how can we help? So let's get into the topic. Zero Trust for Workforce is an exciting conversation to reduce the risk of a data breach for your organization. But what exactly does workforce actually mean? Workforce just means all the people you need to secure every day. It's your employees, your contractors, your vendors, supply chain partners, your executives, everyone that is trying to access applications that you manage and deploy at your organization. So Zero Trust for Workforce is all about securing how your workforce is accessing your corporate applications. And the word Zero Trust, as we discussed earlier, is based on the principles that you're verifying the trust before granting access to any user or any device to corporate resources or data. And when you think about Zero Trust for Workforce, you want to think about these three different things. On the triangle in the slide you see, the first one is verifying the trust of a user. So how do you make sure that Joe or Sheila that is trying to access a work application is really who they claim to be? And the primary solution there is multi-factor authentication. And the second main important thing is verifying the trust of the devices they use, whether it's their Mac or a Windows PC or Android phone or iPhone, whatever device they're using to access work applications, you want to make sure that device is trustable or trustworthy to access your corporate resources. And then the third one is enabling this trust-based access to every application you have in your organization. And we use the word application in a broad way. This can be Salesforce.com, a SaaS application, Box.com, Office 365, or a legacy application that you built, Oracle database or something in the middle, and you're enabling access to the end user to come in through a VPN. So these are the three main tenets of Zero Trust for Workforce. Now let's think about the use cases that are available in each of these. The first and the foremost is multi-factor authentication. That's on the left extreme you see on the slide. Research shows that 81% of all data breaches last year involved credential compromise. Attackers are stealing your end user credentials and then reusing them to log in as regular employees. So it's very hard to detect. And the best way to reduce that risk is by enabling multi-factor authentication for all your users for all the applications you have. In the past, that used to be a very expensive and cumbersome project, but we at Cisco and Duo worked really hard to make it radically easy. You can enable MFA for tens of thousands of users in less than a month. We have a large university that is using Duo that deployed Duo for 20,000 users in less than 2 weeks. And the second solution on the use case side is adaptive MFA. This is all about enabling risk-based policies for users. So if the user belongs to executive group, they have to have these kind of policies. But if the user belongs to a contractor group, they have a different set of policies. This is very crucial when it comes to government employees, where to log into a certain system, you need to use a compliant authenticator. Maybe text-based one-time passcode is very weak, and you have to use a push-based authentication or a FIDO-enabled token. These are all the different authenticators we support, anywhere from SMS one-time passcode to hardware tokens, all the way to push-based authentication or FIPS-compliant tokens. And the last one there is passwordless authentication, which is very exciting. This is all about how do you eliminate the use and reliance on passwords over time. You know, no one likes passwords. Maybe attackers like passwords because they can compromise them. But reducing the dependency on passwords is something you can achieve by deploying Duo in the Zero Trust journey. The second one is endpoints. As we talked about, this is all about verifying the posture of a device before granting the device access to your corporate applications. And the coverage is the most important thing. As a Duo platform solution, we look at covering all the endpoints our users use. These can be Macs, PCs, your Android phones or iPhones. And these devices don't need to be managed devices. They can be completely unmanaged. So imagine your employee using a personal Mac from their home, logging into salesforce.com, not through the corporate network, but just directly through the internet. We can still analyze the posture of the device without installing any agents. And you can check for more details on duo.com. So covering all the devices from operating system type and also by the type of management is very crucial. And that's what we offer from a trusted device perspective. And then you get into the third one, which is around the popular use case with Access called single sign-on. This is where you can enable a single sign-on experience for all your end users for cloud applications. So let's say you're using a dozen SaaS applications, Box, Salesforce, Office 365. Instead of having a dozen passwords, you can just have one password and a single login. And that's offered by Duo as part of the platform. We can also offer a remote access without VPN. So we have a lot of organizations where they have one or two applications that they host, and the contractors need to log into the VPN to actually access these applications. So you're letting the contractor access your whole network when all they need access is to one application. Using this functionality from Duo, a platform on the Zero Trust side, you can enable or publish that single application instead of letting the contractor log into your whole network. These are a lot of use cases, very critical use cases, but you might be overwhelmed on where do I start? So we have more than 20,000 customers using Duo platform for Zero Trust. We did a lot of research and understood that every organization wants to reduce the risk as much as possible in the first few weeks or months of the deployment. So a lot of organizations start with step one, which is multi-factor authentication. It is the most powerful security control you can have for all your employees to reduce the risk of a data breach. And once you deploy MFA for all the users, you get visibility into all the devices they're using. So that's step number two, visibility into all the devices, and you can figure out how many of your users are using out-of-date devices to access critical applications. How many of them are using unmanaged or non-compliant devices? We have customers, a tech company out of Singapore, that actually found their users are using jailbroken iOS devices to log into critical work applications. What is the business justification of that? So you can identify those kind of behavioral patterns and immediately enforce policies. One of the key policies you can enforce there is prevent a user with non-compliant device from accessing critical applications. So you can say, I want to block any user that is using a jailbroken iOS device to log into salesforce.com. And you can actually tell the user through a Duo interface at the time of authentication that the user needs to update the device to log in. So it kind of replaces your mobile device management tools, that kind of invade privacy and have their own challenges. So that's step number two. And step number three, where you're understanding visibility into the devices and enforcing policies that can actually secure the device. You're enabling the end users to apply patches to the device and bring the posture to an acceptable level. And from there, you get on to more advanced contextual policies, That can be based on the location of the user, the time zone, what type of machine they're accessing from, what application they're trying to access. So you can do a lot of combinations in terms of what policies you enforce. So that's kind of the maturity model. And this can be your 1 to 3 year strategy for zero trust. If you are the security or IT leader for a 10,000 people organization, this is definitely a 2 to 3 year project. And you want to start with MFA and focus on that deployment for the first 3 to 4 months. So where do you go next? You can go to duo.com now and learn everything about MFA, zero trust, and device trust, and SSO that's published on the website right now. You can also sign up for a free trial. It'll literally take you less than 10 minutes to sign up for a free trial and enable Duo for one of your favorite applications. And these can be your SaaS apps, on-premise apps, VPN. We have hundreds of integrations outside of the box. So definitely try this. Go to duo.com and sign up for a free trial. And that's pretty much what we have today from a zero trust for workforce perspective. Now I want to turn it over to Ben, who has an exciting interview with one of the customers who is deploying zero trust solutions from Cisco.
Great. Thank you very much, Ash. That concludes our look at the 3 W's of zero trust: at the workforce, at the workload, and at the workplace. So thanks to Jamie Heery, Justin Buchanan, and to Ash Devata for covering that. Now, at this point of the Cisco Secure Insights Summit, let's bring on a customer. Let's hear from someone that's really implementing this. And I'm delighted to bring on our next guest. It's David Stockdale. He is Deputy Director of IT Services at the University of Queensland. He's also a Director of OzCert. And one of the things David's going to be able to do is talk to us a bit about, first of all, someone who's in the middle of this zero trust journey, but also someone who's doing it at incredible pace. Because, of course, when you think about user and device trust and authentication and protection in our current environment, the need to do that rapidly and to do that with the constraints of being a remote worker ourselves is incredible. So David's got quite a unique story to tell. And I'm going to just stop talking, bring him on and let him do it. So David Stockdale, welcome.
Hi, Ben. It's a pleasure to be with you and Cisco. Thank you.
Tell me a bit about the university. I mean, I know it well from time spent in Australia. For the rest of the viewers we have across the region now, maybe just go a bit into the size, the scope of the university, anything that would help paint a picture of daily life in the IT infrastructure of the University of Queensland.
We are one of the top 50 universities in the world. We're part of the G08, the group of 8 universities within Australia. So we're very research focused. We have, for a number of years, been one of the universities that's received the most research funding from the Australian Research Council. So we're very fortunate. We're approximately a $2 billion business, and we have around 53,000 undergraduate and postgraduate students. And about 6,500 staff, that's full-time equivalent staff. But the nature of the campus is one that is very open as well. So unlike many corporate organizations where everything is quite well locked down, university is quite the opposite. It's quite open, which leads to some interesting challenges. I don't believe that whilst there is a border in terms of the university campus, there's actual physical locations. I don't see there being a border to our network anymore. It's very open. And again, we encourage people onto the campus, and we encourage people to be able to connect onto our networks, but we need to do that appropriately. So these are some of the challenges, because we're protecting leading research. Some of that has obviously medical implications. Some of it is defense related. All of our research is something we need to protect until the appropriate moment where we go into the publication phase.
How do you think about whether you think about it as a trade-off or a balance, where you've got the need to have openness and collaboration and the need for security? Those could seem to be antithetical almost. How do you think about trading one off against the other, or allowing both to an extent? Can you just talk about some of the thought processes and the conversations that you have when deciding how to set policy in that kind of environment?
Well, yes, certainly. We've thrown away the adage that if you're in a particular location, you must be trusted. I mean, that's something that's gone away. And this comes to my the whole boundary idea that just because you're there doesn't mean you're a person who we want to have connection to our network. And you're right, it is a challenge to have that openness and at the same time have that security. But it really comes down to understanding who's who, understanding what's what, and what you need to protect and how you need to protect it. So some things we want to be more open, some things we want to be more closed. So it's about understanding what's happening on our network. And what the appropriate controls are based on for the people who are trying to use it as well.
Thank you, David. That's interesting. I wanted to end on or last set of questions really were looking at now user and device, because I think we all we're speaking to each other now from the safety of our own environments, I think, and we're all in a different physical place than we thought we might be, this time a few months back. And all of us have gone through challenges and changes of direction. And maybe can you just talk a bit about the kind of speed of deployment, or how you work with Cisco, or how we partnered with you around specifically around the protection of your team members that needed to be remote, and the speed of deployment there? Because I understand that we were able to work together and solve some problems there around the current pandemic requirements.
Yes, certainly. I think. I need to call out really that that the partnership that we have with Cisco is one of the strongest that we have in the IT space. And you are a fantastic partner, and you've really enabled us to transition into this sort of very secure environment with the Duo product. The rate of deployment, which started prior to the COVID situation, was fast and impressive as well. We managed to roll it out to our staff, in a very, very short period of time. But one of the most important, I suppose I was going to say metrics, but I don't actually have the numbers. But one of the great wins for us was the fact that we did actually employ some additional service desk staff to take calls, and there were so few of them that we didn't need them in the end, because it was so intuitive. The product was so intuitive. We also have continued to do that rollout, even though we're all working remotely. And the University of Queensland doesn't really have experience. It's not like a bank that rolls out applications to a customer base that's distributed across the country or anything. We don't have that type of experience. A lot of the things that we roll out, we tend to do to a workforce that comes to campus on a regular basis, on most of the time. But we've managed to continue to do that rollout to staff that are working remotely with almost zero incidents or problems, I should say, not incidents, but problems. And that includes to some of our our clinicians as well. And some of those clinicians are in the middle of working on the current pandemic. So we've had the confidence to be able to do that, and to those part of our community, and that speaks volumes about what a good product it is. Not only that, it's such a good intuitive product from the user perspective. Very keen to take that approach of when we're looking at things. What does it look like from the person who's using it? From an IT person, we can all say, "Oh yeah, I understand that. I got it to work." Well, it's not really about that. It's about those people who have got no IT skills, and the people have taken to that product so easily. It's testament to how well thought out that is, and to the work that Cisco put in with us to ensure that rollout was a success.
That's wonderful to hear, both the fact that it's easy enough for folks who are not security experts to use, and the fact that the help desk teams were not busy. We often use the phrase the democratization of security to mean that security should be able to be in the hands of everybody who needs it, and that's a great example of that. I'll leave you one last question before we wrap, because you've been very generous with your time today, and that's just what next. We talked about zero trust, we talked about the 3 Ws. We talked about protecting your workforce in pandemic times, and all the great work that's going on at the university right now. I mean, what does success look like for you in the long term, and what sort of strategy are you trying to pursue in helping the university to build for the future?
Well, on a practical level, what's next is the segmentation of our local area network. It's about protecting some very important data that passes across it. But what does success look like? Success for me looks like an environment that we are confident is secure, and where it doesn't really matter where the workforce is. It's irrelevant. We want people to come to campus, but equally so, we don't expect them to be there. And we want them to be able to operate securely from anywhere globally. And really being able to get to all of our services being fully open onto the internet, but ensure that the right people have the right access at the right time in a secure manner. And that's the key, is a secure manner is for me what success looks like.
That's fabulous. I mean, and that's no small feat either. So, I mean, I understand, given the scope and the size of your institution, the number of people, and that incredible sense of collaboration that you're trying to foster, that isn't easy and yet so important, because success then for the university is people collaborating on important work from wherever they need to be in a very distributed fashion, which is probably going to result in faster time to value, which when you're working on important vaccines or related work to medical challenges is obviously incalculably important. So on behalf of all of us, thank you, David, very much for being a great partner. We will strive to be there with you as you take your next steps. And I'll just formally say, David Stockdale, Deputy Director of IT Services at the University of Queensland and Director of OzCert. It's been great to spend time with you today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity. As I say, the partnership with Cisco is a great one, and we really do appreciate and value it. Thank you.
Now, to wrap it up, I'm going to do one more thing on this Cisco Secure Insights Summit, and that's to hand over to John Maynard. And John is the Vice President of our Global Security Specialists Organization, and he's going to wrap up the summit and take us home. So, John, if you're ready, over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is John Maynard, and I'm the Vice President of Global Security Field Teams here at Cisco. It's been a busy day, and I know you've heard from a lot of teams around what we're doing around secure remote worker and zero trust. We kicked off the day with Wendy Nather, who gave you some of the CISO priorities that we're really talking to right now. Organizations around the world have had thousands of employees work from home en masse, and that's fundamentally changed the risk profile of the organizations and how the security teams think about risk management and how they think about device visibility. We've got employees that have moved off network and are accessing applications on-premise, whether they're in the cloud, whether they're native cloud applications in the form of SaaS. And they're doing that from corporate-owned devices, but they're also doing that from their own devices, their iPhones, their tablets, et cetera, And what that's done is it's mean that our customers and our organizations, governmental, enterprises, mid-market customers, small customers, they've all had to make sure that they can cope with this increase at scale in a very, very short period of time. And typically that's meant setting up infrastructure to make sure that the VPN can typically scale to this number of users using remote access concurrently. But it's also meant that those customers that were on the process and on the program towards a zero trust framework have essentially accelerated their view of, and their progress towards zero trust. So we've had organizations look at how they think about device visibility. What do they have on the endpoint? How do they think about securing that identity and that user? And how do they start to think about getting the risk profile of that user and the risk profile of that device and bringing that together to make continuous authentication decisions based on a risk profile and a risk management framework. And what we've also seen is organizations really trying to drive quick time to value and to adopt these security controls very, very quickly in the new world. And so when we think about security today and in the future, it needs to become much closer to the user, much closer to the device, and then importantly, much closer to the application and to the workload. And what that's meant is cloud security and security delivered from the cloud is one of the key priorities of organizations today. It allows them quick time to value and really to take advantage of innovation in security in a very, very speedy way. And so, public cloud and cloud visibility and how we get the same security controls that we used to have on-premise in the cloud, in a cloud form factor, and how do we start thinking about getting security protection and detection capabilities in the cloud in the same way and integrated with our on-premise environments. You also heard our remote worker offering and what we're doing to help organizations today accelerate that infrastructure, the device visibility, and the user protection. And then you heard the corresponding view from Chase at Forrester about how this is moving towards decentralized security and how this paradigm is really accelerated from secure remote worker to zero trust. You heard from Interpol, fantastic presentation from Interpol about what has really happened on the external market. So how are the adversaries, taking advantage of the new risk profile and the new attack vectors to really attack organizations today using COVID-19 and remote access, as a key inflection point to launch their attacks. And then you also heard from Jamie Heary and some of our distinguished technical teams around how we think about remote work and how we think about secure zero trust. And we talk about the 3 W's: the workforce, the workplace, and the workload. And so I hope today has been informative to you. I hope you've got value out of it. And the team is here to help you on your journey. So please reach out to your account teams and your security teams at Cisco. And thank you very much for joining the virtual summit.
Thank you all of us for joining on this day one of the Cisco Secure Insights Summit. Below me, you'll see flashing the URL that you need to use and to remember for day 2 coming soon. And you're going to want to tune in for that. We're expanding the conversation. We're going to talk about security, working together as a team. We're going to hear from a customer, Lou Saviano, talking to our very own CISO, Steve Martino. We've got a demo of our brand new security platform, Cisco Secure X. An analyst deep dive with our Jeff Reed, Senior Vice President of the Security Business Group, and John Olczyk from ESG, Enterprise Strategy Group, a senior analyst in our space who you're going to love hearing from. We've got Teresa Payton, who was CIO at the White House. And if that's not all enough, we're going to start off with an opening keynote from the co-captain of the US women's football team, Megan Rapinoe, somebody who is an absolute hero of mine. So, join us for day 2. I hope you enjoyed day 1. I hope you got all your questions answered, that you were busy in the chat putting your questions for Andy Burke and his team. Thank you very much for joining us. We recorded it all, so it's there for replay. And again, the replay is available and the replay information is available at the URL below. Please join us for day 2. Stay safe and thank you so much for joining us. See you next time.
April 16th, 2018. This is Tokyo. This is Rakuten. These are Cisco executives invited to a meeting with Rakuten. This is Tarek Amin, CTO of Rakuten Mobile. This is Prakash Suthar, team leader from Cisco Customer Experience.
Namaskar. Good morning.
This is a story about doing something that's never been done before.
Prakash, I need someone to help me build the world's first end-to-end cloud-native network. We need a partner.
Let's do it.
In order for this to work, it has to be optimized for 5G.
We'll design it from scratch.
Fully automated.
Fully virtualized.
Cloud.
Core.
Transport.
Virtual RAN.
Everything. It will be the first of its kind.
Oh, yeah.
You can figure it out?
We can figure it out.
This is their idea. It's an ambitious idea. An unprecedented idea.
It's true.
But this is what industry executives called it.
Impossible.
But that didn't stop them. That just made them hungry.
So Prakash, how about developers?
We'll create a platform.
Different systems.
Different partners
Working
working
together.
together. What else?
This is the plane that took the Rakuten team to San Jose.
Okay, so it takes 3 weeks to implement a traditional radio site.
With automation, we can do it in 10 minutes and more secure.
Zero touch.
Zero defect.
Ready for 5G.
Just upgrade the software.
This is Tarek's impressed face. This went on for months.
We're gonna need new hardware.
Then we'll partner with your vendor.
But our design?
You got it.
Then Tarek said,
And we want you to manage the whole chain, oversee the integration of vendors and partners.
We're on it.
February 3rd, 2019. This is Rakuten and Cisco and their impossible idea making their first call.